Hello and good evening. Welcome to Ask Me Anything with the Baltimore WordPress Meetup group. This is our meetup for June 11th, 2024. The recordings will be available on YouTube, usually within about 2 weeks of the actual date of the meetup. The links from the meetup that were shared in the chat will be listed at the very end of the video. So if you're looking for the link, go to the end and they will be there. This meetup is informational, which means please use the information, product, services we show at your own risk. Just because we are showing a website, plugin, theme, or anything else is not an official WordPress endorsement of that. Above all, keep it family friendly as most of us are attending from home. We will do our best to follow the WordPress community standards, and that means that if you break these rules, you will be evicted from the meeting. No spamming or spammer-like behavior. We have people of all different skill levels and backgrounds, so no judgment for when someone is at a different level than where you are at. And overall, don't be a jerk. We have some sponsor thank yous before we get to our main meetup. Our first sponsor thank you is Anthera WordPress Development. They help companies serious about their WordPress development needs. They specialize in helping agencies and businesses that are frustrated by their WordPress challenges. If you need help, visit anthera.com/help, and I will put these links into the chat. Just give me 1 second. Our second sponsor is the Easy Alley Guide. They work to make accessibility on the web easier to implement through done-for-you processes and tools. For more information on web accessibility, including tools, tutorials, and more, please visit easyalleyguide.com. And our final sponsor to thank is OB Digital Consulting. They sponsor our video recordings and make all of these recordings on YouTube available. If you need help with your video production, please contact OB Digital Consulting. Some quick admin before we get to the questions. We're going to use the chat for quick questions and to queue people up. So go ahead and find your Zoom chat. Everyone will start out muted, and then when it's your turn, I'll send you an unmute request. And remember, no one knows everything, but we'll do our best to try and help you out. And we, of course, always appreciate suggestions from the group. A number of our people have contributed to the chat. And so please feel free to do that as long as they are productive and not being a jerk. The pre-submitted questions that we have were from Terry, Gail, Bill, and Missy. If those people are here, please type here in the Zoom chat so that we can get to your questions first. After we handle these questions, then we will go on to open up questions from the chat. So Terry is here, and so is Gail. So Terry was first in the order, so we'll start with her.
Hello.
Hi.
I think I'd written it out.
Could you go over the process of properly archiving or deleting old irrelevant posts? These particular posts are notifications of classes with links to sign up that have long tags, and the images in the post are no longer needed as well. So the best thing to do is to make the decision of whether you want to just delete them and let them go to like a 404 error page, or whether you want to set a specific redirect for them. There are also some redirect plugins where you can have it redirect like all of your errors to your main blog page if you want to have that happen.
I know that some of the SEO plugins will do that. I'm looking for a simple solution, and also just the understanding of what goes on in the difference between the 404s and 301s, and how, just a understanding of that.
Okay, well, 404 means that the content is no longer available, and it typically goes to a generic error page.
Which are usually pretty annoying.
They can be pretty annoying, but you can also customize your 404 pages and make them more informative and useful if you want to. But That's what happens with 404s, and that's just if you just want to delete them and you don't want to worry about hassles, you just can delete them.
But
301.
don't it, isn't there, what the told when I looked this up is that affects SEO to have 404s, or it's like frowned upon or something, but is that the case?
404s will frequently get the URL to actually get delisted from the Google and other search engines, which can actually be a good thing. 301s don't necessarily encourage the search engines to delist you, although if you are
Oh, for
keeping
that
a
particular,
regularly submitted sitemap to
right.
them, then the updates to the sitemap should encourage them to update their content.
So delisting meaning that that particular post
That
is,
URL, that
okay,
specific URL would be
that
removed
specific
from
you,
the
okay.
search index, which is probably what you want since it's old, no longer valid content.
So
301
an
says,
updated sitemap would would take care of that.
so
Go on.
some of the SEO plugins have updates that they kind of push or encourage the search engines to get. And you can
Uh-huh.
also go into Google Search Console and Bing Search Console, and you can actually submit your sitemap like once a month, or if you did,
Oh, okay.
let's say every year you go through and you do the purge of old content. Right after you do that would be the best time to go in and actually manually submit the sitemap, which encourages the search engines to re-index your site based on the new URLs.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. So it isn't really a verboten to have 404s. It's just
Not the end of
you
the
need,
world, no. It just
yeah,
means
yeah.
the content's no longer there. It's
Gotcha.
really not it what it does is it affects that URL primarily. It doesn't
Okay.
necessarily. Now, if you're going to remove a whole bunch of content, again, you want to submit the new site map index, which is an XML file, to the search engine so that they get the update, say, hey, get rid of my old content.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because reading about it, they make it sound like it's a terrible thing, and I was trying to get a grasp of what that meant. Thank you. Yeah.
Next up, we have Gail. Gail's question was, I have two links in one row, but I end up with the most recent link for both. I'm not really sure what you're asking.
Hi, I'm Gail. So I'm trying to use a text box for a section on my website, and I want to have two different links to other web pages, and I'm not sure
So
how.
is this like an ACF custom field?
So I don't think I'm advanced enough to understand that.
All right. When you go, so you're editing a page or a post?
I'm editing a page.
Okay. On that page, are you using the default block editor or are you using another tool?
You mean like Divi?
Correct.
Yes, I'm using Divi.
Okay, so when you say you're putting in a text block, you're inserting a Divi module called text.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, this should be basically, it should give you a WYSIWYG editor where you have a visual and a text screen.
Yes.
Okay, and when you are inserting the link, you're highlighting the text, clicking the link thing, and putting in the link.
Yes.
Okay, and so you highlight one bit of text and put in a link, and then you have some more text that isn't a link, and then you have some more text that is a link.
Correct. So I feel as though I'm only, when I get out of the text mode and I go to the link mode, I feel as though I'm not getting a new link mode when I'm adding a second link.
Okay, you should be.
Okay, so maybe I'm not differentiating between like two different parts. So I guess I would have text and then link, and then I would have to do a separate
Yeah.
text part? Ah, okay. I think that's the answer.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have either Bill or Missy here? If not, we will open up for questions to the general chat. If you have a short question, you can pop it into the chat. And if you have a longer question, you can just put a question mark into the chat and then you can go ahead and talk. Vanessa, you are in the meeting chat and that's where you post a question. Just right into the meeting chat. We don't have a separate chat and a separate Q&A. All right, Jean has a question about the block editor, but Vanessa just unmuted, so we'll go ahead and do her, and then we'll get to Jean. Yes,
Okay.
Vanessa.
Hi, thank you, Jen. So my question is about heading levels. I'm really struggling with this because I have a page that I'm working on, and the page starts with the title, which is an H1, and then below that, it's got kind of like a catchphrase, which is an H3, and below that is the bigger heading, which is an H2. So that is no longer in the order, but I'm really struggling with what to do there.
So I would make the catchphrase, since it's not really a heading, like logically, it's probably not a heading, is it? It doesn't start a section, it doesn't introduce a topic, it doesn't
Right, that's correct. That's
fit
correct.
in
Yeah,
as the table of contents for the page.
yeah,
It's
that's
just
correct.
a catchphrase.
Uh-huh.
So that is just text that you want to be styled. So I would keep that as a paragraph element and I would just put a CSS class on it to style it up.
Okay, that's helpful. My next question is regarding buttons because there's 3 buttons on that page and all of them go to the same destination, but 2 of them are called register and the first one is called join now. So that would mean they're no longer consistently being identified, but I'm struggling with that because I feel like the client really wants marketing inside their website happening, if that makes sense. So like the button says join now, the 2 buttons below it say register, but they all go to the same destination. So is there a way I can I guess make that work where it's not violating WCAG anymore because they're not consistently identified, or but still do marketing? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are to try to get a consistent label on them. I mean, I'd have to double check the exact regulation on the WCAG, but typically it's more of an issue when you have the same word going to more than one location, such as learn more, and you have 3 of them, they go to 3 different places. That is typically a bigger problem than if you have 2 labels that go to the same destination. But I might try and say maybe something like join and register to join. See if you could try to get the language to align a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, it's just this is a nonprofit, so as you know, they do have to be accessible since they're getting some government funding, and I just you know, just want to do a good job for that. So thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
All right, next up we have Jean. So Jean's question is about the full site editor. There is a page of submitted images, which I'd like to display in a masonry gallery. If I remember correctly, it depends on whether you want to get a third-party plugin or if you want to write some CSS to handle the masonry gallery.
Yeah, I'm okay with writing CSS. I just didn't know whether I should do like rows or columns and do it like that, or wait for the new grid block to come in next month. I'd rather not wait, and I noticed like the plugins that seem to be nice, you have to pay for it, and it seemed like.
All right, so here I'm sharing my screen, and this was kind of what I did for an Elementor to get kind of the look.
That's perfect. Yes.
So what I did was I just wrote a little bit of custom CSS on this. So all I did was literally, I just did a small amount of content for the gallery. Because I just wrote a little bit of the CSS, and I will drop this link into the chat. But here, if I go to, oh, you can see that it looks a whole lot different when I remove some of this. But yeah, I just added to the default Elementor to kind of give it a masonry type look with some CSS.
Okay, thank you very much. And Eagle, thank you for dropping that link for the plugins.
And Eagle also mentioned that Cadence Block has a gallery block with a masonry choice, and Cadence, the basic block package, is free.
I like that price. Thank you.
The next one is, I think, from, is it Hal G. Brown? And the question is, what is the most effective method to prevent the media library from expanding into an unwieldy size? Use Google Photos for storage, and subsequently each embedded photo. The process is a lot of effort. Typically, one of the best things for keeping the media library from expanding too much is to use an image optimization plugin that will automatically optimize the images when they're loaded in, so that they don't, so that you're no longer putting in, 5 megabyte images, but getting that cut down to a much smaller and more reasonable size.
I do, thank you for having me, by the way. I do use something called Smush, and I guess there's many of them out there, but so it doesn't matter really how many you have in the library. It's just, it seemed
It's
like
not
I'm
about
getting up.
the number of images, it's about the size of the images. So
Yeah,
you could have
okay,
tons of small images,
okay,
or you could have a few really large images and you'd have the same size total library. So it's about keeping the total library within a reasonable size. So as Eagle mentioned, there are a number of different plugins available. A couple of the most popular ones are Short Pixel, as he mentioned. I personally use Imagify, which is very similar, but what they do is, as you can see, they take large images and they make them much smaller.
I see.
And what they can do is you can configure it so that it actually shrinks larger images upon import. And this all happens automatically in the background. Different ones have different pricing models. For example, you can use, about 200 images a month for free. And I believe Short Pixel runs something similar. They have a free plan as well. They get, about 100 images a month. So if you have a very small site and you only need a few images at a time, then those plans can work well. Otherwise, they have other plans. Short Pixel, some people prefer, especially if they don't do a lot of images. You can do a one-time, purchase on the credits, and then, until you use up those credits, which for a smaller site could be several years, you don't
Yeah,
have to pay again.
I
It just
see.
depends on your individual needs. I manage a whole bunch of websites, so I have the infinite plan type situation
Okay.
so that I can handle tons. And I mean, there are literally some months that I do 5,000 images.
Okay,
That helps.
so basically what you're telling me is optimization is the most important factor
Optimization,
here. Yeah, and I don't need to be worried about the numbers that much.
correct. I have several websites which have 20,000 plus images on them.
Oh my goodness, wow.
Those
Okay,
are running a little bit heftier web hosting, but again, the websites are running just fine.
okay. Very helpful, thank you.
Mhm. All right, our next question is Enric. I am very new to creating websites. I've started with a basic one for myself, but how do you create a website for someone else or modify an existing website if the individual does not have their information credentials to get into their account? Well, to create a website, you need hosting. So you need to be able to create a new website on a specific hosting company, of which there are many and they all operate differently. Do you have a specific host you're talking about?
Hi, this is Nina. I've been doing playing with WordPress for my website, and I've been looking at a lot of freelance websites, and a lot of people want WordPress and the HTML and the CSS, which I've been learning on my own. I just wouldn't know how to get started to create one for someone else.
So what you would need to do is, it's always best to have the owner of the business own their own domain. So you would have them register the domain with a domain registrar that allows delegate access. My personal favorite is Namecheap. They're very easy to deal with in my experience. Then you would need to have hosting on which their website can be hosted. That can be with you, or that can be on their own hosting account. Then once you have hosting in place, then WordPress gets installed and configured, and then your theme is installed and configured, and your plugins are installed and configured, and you put all the content in. That's a very high level overview. And as far as if the person does not have their login, well, you need some kind of login. So it might be with the hosting company where you can get into the database through there, or if they have absolutely no logins nor access to the hosting, well, then you're kind of up a creek without a paddle, and you pretty much have to recreate the website because you don't have access to anything.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Shelley, and that is Mush Free and the WordPress Creator Plan. You got a message about that conflicting with Jetpack Image Accelerator. You used Smush for all of the photos and still had some issues with them not conforming to size. So I have not personally used that Smoosh plugin. Not really sure what one it is.
Yes, it was just, how you get those image blocks where you can put several images in it, and then you can have it do it random as far as where to put them or whatever. And I have them, what was it? I forget what the word was. Crop. And so that all of them were the same size. And it just doesn't seem to like that.
So you have a gallery. Is it the default block editor gallery element,
Yes.
or are you using another block add-on?
Nope, the gallery one.
Okay, and you said that the conflict is with Jetpack Image Accelerator?
Well, to start with, when I logged in and set up Smoosh, it said about that there was going to be a conflict and I needed to turn the Jetpack Accelerator off because that's also what Smoosh does. And so I did turn it off, and I ran ahead and ran the bulk thing. And then, of course, there were some that were too large. But then when I went in to look at the ones that were highlighted, it seemed like the ones that were highlighted were the ones that were just in the gallery, and I took the crop off. I've tried random. I didn't know what else to do because it wouldn't let me do any other type of adjustment on them within the gallery.
Yeah, the gallery doesn't have a lot of options to it. It's designed to be a rather simple gallery. So are the images going outside of their bounds, or?
No, because it's cropping them. So then it's making them all the same size. So some of them that were bigger, it made them smaller. Didn't do anything to them as far as making them look distorted in any way, but it ended up making them all the same size. And I would have thought if it did that, then that shouldn't be a problem. But somehow it thinks it is. But then it also said, like, there's a little faint little notation at the bottom that, and not in all circumstances, can these be fixed? So it's kind of like, all right.
So this is just an error message showing up on the WordPress dashboard.
It's showing up on the Smoosh side.
Okay, so
where Smoosh shows like it's highlighted And then it gives you the little icon, like here's more info on it. And then at the very bottom of it, very faintly, it says, you know, that not necessarily can all these be fixed. And it's like, okay, so is this more of a suggestion?
Moosh having a complaint is what it is. It's just that service is having some sort of a complaint. That's all I can really tell you, is that service is having some sort of issues and complaining about it.
And then the other thing I noticed, somehow Accelerator for Jetpack automatically came back on after it was done all that. It doesn't seem to be creating an issue, but I now have a bunch of photos, I guess, in the media library versus on the CDN that comes with Creator Pack. And when I go in,
I don't use Jetpack as it tends to cause a lot of other problems.
yeah, I'm kind of thinking that too.
Yeah. Unless you're really getting a specific benefit out of the Jetpack plugin, you might want to consider dropping it.
Yeah, I don't pay for it. It's only what's in the creator package. I don't pay anything extra. The only thing that I'm really using per se out of it is the mimifying of the CSS and Java, and the generating of the new files. What's that called there, that they have that, and then it refreshes your score. I don't know. I think that's like where it's resending it and reconfiguring it and sending it to Google again, but I'm not sure. But when I go into Page Insight, it's interesting because it was saying that my mobile, even though my mobile was in the high 60s, low 70s, it actually said that the largest content paint ended up being a smaller number than what it was on desktop.
That's probably because it WordPress generates multiple file sizes. It generates a whole set of file sizes for a specific image and then serves different file sizes based on the device.
Right.
So for mobile, it served literally a smaller image.
But then once I did Smoosh and I went back in and ran it, it zoomed up my number so high on the largest paint, and my performance
that most likely overrode the default WordPress setup. I would not be running the Smoosh and the Jetpack together.
Okay, but then on the desktop side, my performance level shot up to 97.
That can happen.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, well, it helped on one end, but not everything.
Yes, and remember that the mobile by default with Google Page Insights is a throttled 3G connection, which means it's very bandwidth restricted, whereas the desktop is not remotely bandwidth restricted.
Good.
So that's why serving up different sizes is going to be a big difference for the mobile. But anyway, I wouldn't run the two of them together. I would pick one and stick with it.
So can I, now that I've smooshed them, can I now deactivate Smoosh but still keep my file sizes?
It depends on whether it is running through a third-party CDN or if it actually modified the files within your website.
In my
And that I don't know.
library, it looks like it changed the file sizes there.
If it actually changed the files in your media library, the files on your server, then now that it's been optimized, you can probably get rid of it without having any negative impacts. Try just deactivating it without deleting it, and then you can take a look.
Okay, because I always figure too, worst case scenario, I can roll it back to the last backup because I haven't done anything else to it. So, okay.
Yep. All right, next up we have Jean, and wanted to ask another question about the media library. Is there a media library organizer that helps to organize the images? Yes, let me remember the name of it. Give me one moment, please. Greg suggested Happy Files, which I have definitely heard of, and I've heard some good things about it. There's another one, but I just have to find the name of it. There's also a tool called Happy Files. Thank you, Eagle. That's the one I was. Filebird is another one. That one is also pretty popular. It helps you organize into folders. Both Happy Files or Filebird will be able to help get you more organized files.
Thank you.
Yep. Were there any other questions? All right, I'll drop another question in. The website was created about 5 years ago and needs an update and appearance. You operate as an alumni association without any sales or membership fees, yet you have a following. As the volunteer web manager, you want to update the site by transitioning to a more updated theme, and you're apprehensive due to negative experiences that you've heard about. So updating to a new theme can be a very negative experience. Let me look up the Bridge theme. A search alone on the internet of Bridge will not help. Okay, so Bridge is a theme from Code Interactive, and it depends on how your pages are actually built. If I remember correctly, the code has a number of different options for how you could actually build out the pages. They include Elementor, Bakery, and I think they even have one of their own builders for the back end, which means that depending on how the pages are actually built, you could have a lot of page rebuilding to do. That is typically the biggest issue that happens when switching from one theme to another, is that the pages are all built in a specific builder that relies on functionality that the theme provides. Are there any other questions you wanted to ask about that?
No, you've answered them. I appreciate that. I think I'd be treading on very thin ice by trying to switch to theme for just a new appearance. So I think I'll just stick with what I've got. I thank you, Jen. I appreciate it.
Yes, depending on how it's built. For example, if they were all built with Elementor in the back end, which I'm guessing with a 5-year-old site, they probably were not. But if they were all built with Elementor, then you would likely be able to swap in a new theme without too much pain. But if they were, for example, built in Bakery or the code builder itself, then you could definitely have a lot more challenges with updating the theme.
Yeah. Well,
I've seen it anywhere from, an hour to swap in a new theme, because none of the content depended on the theme, to, days and days of work.
Yeah.
To get the content moved over. So.
Well, I certainly don't need all the extra challenges, so I'll just stick with what I've got. But I thought I'd throw it out there, so thank you very much.
And the Bridge theme does have quite a few options within it. So you could probably do some updates in terms of the color palette, as long as things were, came off of the theme options. If you have actually built out the individual pages and set the individual buttons to all be red, for example, then you would have to individually set every button, because each one has its own individual properties. But if they came off of global settings, then you can do a lot of updates just on the theme, and then they cascade down.
Yeah, okay. And Greg just mentioned I could likely do some refreshing with the existing theme. So that's essentially what you're saying as well. So
yeah,
maybe
so
that's
you
what
can always, depending on if your hosting supports it, and if they don't, there's a number of services available online to create a demo site or a staging site.
Right.
So you could basically copy it to a staging, mess around for an hour or two, see if things are going well, or if they went really poorly, just chuck the whole thing.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you, Greg.
Did we have any other questions? Again, if you have a longer question, just toss a question mark into the chat.
Yeah, I got a question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe somebody asked this already or previously. but I have a little bit of WordPress experience, maybe 4 months or so. I have some development experience as well, and well, I actually had a job with WordPress, so I don't have that. I have a different job now. I'm looking into getting into freelance work on the side, and I'm just wondering if you have any ideas of the best roadmap to take to getting into that. It seems pretty complicated. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
different things to look into, and I just want to get a good idea of where to start or where to begin.
So the first part about freelancing is it is business. You have to be able to handle the business aspect probably before you have to be able to handle the coding aspect, as there are a
Okay.
number of companies and services that you can kind of offload some of the actual building or development work to while you handle the actual clients and customers. So, for example, I work
Okay.
with several agencies doing white label development and a lot of website maintenance for them. The biggest thing that the agencies and whatnot all look for is how do they get recurring revenue? So, how do they get a client not just in the door for a one off, but how do they get the client in the door for a monthly retainer? What can be retained? They get into hosting because why? That's a monthly recurring revenue. They get into website maintenance because yes, you do need to maintain your WordPress website. A lot of times the agencies, some of them do it in-house, some of them offload it to white label groups, but one of the biggest things that they look for is how do I get a client not just today, but how do I get a client going forwards?
Sure. So you actually work for an agency to do
I
your
work for several.
freelancing?
So I have two companies, and some of my clients are direct clients of mine, and some of my clients are actually agencies, and I handle various parts of their processes for them.
So I guess, do you get hired by these agencies
So I have a
to?
1099 type agreement with the agency to be anything from developer to build website to doing the maintenance work and their hosting, handling all of that for them. So I work with several SEO and marketing companies. What they do is they handle the clients, they handle a lot of the SEO part, the marketing part, Google ad part, that kind of stuff. And they just want the website to be up and working, and they collect the retainer and they pay me, and I keep them up and running and working. Their core business is the SEO and the marketing, and then they hire off the development and the maintenance because that's not what they want to be spending their resources on. They don't have enough work for a full-time developer. I mean, I've done white label stuff and was only doing about 20 hours a week of work for an agency that had over 100 websites, but they didn't need that much development time. They had full-time copywriters and marketing people and SEOs and whatnot, but they didn't actually need developer full-time.
Is there a good website or resources where to look for these agencies, or where to begin? I guess I'm sure I have to apply
It's
to.
challenging to find these agencies. In the past, I found them via various freelancing websites, Freelancer, Upwork, various other freelance type platforms. The agencies will sometimes go to those looking for people. Otherwise, get on LinkedIn and start reaching out, kind of sending off connection requests, but don't harass people. Just kind of
course, yeah.
connect, but usually what you do is you connect with someone and then you just you post stuff on LinkedIn that's about yourself or things that you do, talk about successes and whatnot, and then maybe down the line, if have some people that you're targeting, there is actually someone who has some info on kind of using LinkedIn. He's got a newsletter and he's got a bunch of strategies on LinkedIn and how to use it and whatnot on his newsletter, and that might be helpful to you.
Okay, great. Yeah, if I were to go, I mean, is it kind of a known thing to just kind of do it solo without an agency? They just build actual full websites for individuals or companies
Yes, again,
and do
you'll
it that way?
probably start off on the freelancing platforms or whatnot to get, a
Okay.
few behind you. Some people, just to build up a portfolio of some actual real websites, have done something like Catchafire, and they've volunteered and they've worked with a nonprofit. And so the nonprofit basically gets a free website, and you kind of work on building out some of your portfolio to have actual real websites that are real things and not just toss up a random demo site.
Sure. So I guess spend time building an attractive website, no matter what it is, to put up there on Catchafire.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, most people want to see what you've done before they want
Sure,
to hire you. And so
of
how do you
course.
get an actual portfolio when you don't have a portfolio?
Yeah, I have a little one. Yeah, I have some done.
Well, then but basically go to freelancing websites and just it's hard. You got to hustle a lot when you start.
Yeah, I bet. I know. So that's why I'm kind of here. I've been thinking about it forever and trying to take first step. So it just seems so overwhelming. So Catchafire, and that's Catchafire is a freelance, or that's a nonprofit. That's a
The Catchafire is a nonprofit.
freelance website, nonprofit
So
that
yeah.
looks for
So that's a
websites.
volunteering website.
Okay.
There are websites like Upwork, Freelancer. There's a whole bunch of them. And the thing about the freelancing website is you're going to have to start low to get your foot in the door.
Sure. Right.
Typically.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
And
wondering about pricing too. So
you do searches and look for people similar to you who are actually getting hired and price in with them.
sure.
And as Greg tossed into the chat, he suggests pick a charity that you can get behind and help them with their website. You can make connections with the board if the charity has a board. Vanessa suggests that she did it with local businesses. So if you have a local business community, possibly a chamber of commerce, if you can get out there in person and do some networking with them.
Cool.
The biggest thing you have is the business side. The business side is what you actually have to do first before you actually get necessarily the skills in.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of breaking up, but yeah, the business side.
Yeah, you have to actually sell the website and get customers and deal with the clients and the customers before you really need to worry about the technical part, because the technical part you can quite frankly outsource.
Sure. Okay. That yeah, that helps for sure. Thanks.
All right,
Thank you.
we are almost at 8 o'clock. So does anyone else have a question? And otherwise, we will start wrapping up for the evening. You can still toss a question into the chat. If you are looking for WordPress assistance outside of our regular Meetup hour, check out our website, which has information. We will be going on summer break, which we do every year. We take July and August off, and then we come back in September. We will resume in September, and normally the first meetup of the fall is an Ask Me Anything. You can visit meetup.com, or you can visit our webpage, which I already put into the chat, and get informed about when the next meetup will be. Typically, I post it early August. So thank you all for joining, and I hope to see you in the fall. And I suppose I could toss in